Just waking up in the morning, gotta thank
Welcome
God.
back. Severe and Ben in the morning, 1620 The Zone. Shane did not have to use his AK this morning. It was great. I was very happy about that. The last thing you ever want to see is Shane walking around with the AK, scaring people. It's not a good thing. Nikki over at 98.5 is like, hey, put away the AK. We don't need all that. Let's just have a good day. Shane putting up a triple-double or nearly a triple-double.
It's time to twerk.
All of that.
Let's go dancing.
All that is huge, man. All that is huge. Charlie Kirk, just going to read from the Wikipedia, is an American conservative activist and radio talk show host. He founded Turning Point USA with Bill Montgomery in 2012, served as the executive director since, listed on the 2018 Forbes 30 Under 30 in its law and policy. He's also CEO of Turning Point Action and Students for Trump and president of Turning Point Endowment. He also has a radio talk show, podcast radio talk show. Before I play some of the things he said about Simone Biles, I'm going to read what Pat McAfee, former punter for the Colts, a West Virginia grad, a guy who has become a pretty good celebrity wrestler for WWE, and speaks his mind. Pat said, Simone Biles bowed out of the team competition. People attacking her is insane to me. The expectations and pressure is so high because she is the standard. I hope she gets back to feeling great like the GOAT she is. Pat McAfee Show says, we appreciate you. Don't ever forget it. That's what he said about it. Here is what Charlie Kirk said. We'll go with the first cut. He kind of talked for about 2 minutes about Simone Biles, describing how she let down the country, called her a sociopath at one point and selfish. Here's the first part of what he had to say.
Simone Biles says, this Olympic Games, I wanted to be for myself when I came in, and I felt like I was still doing it for other people, as she cried after the team event on Tuesday. So that it hurts my heart because doing what I love has been kind of taken away from me to please other people. Yeah, that's the point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you selfish sociopath. You kidding me? Today it's like, you know what? I'm not going to do something stupid and get hurt. It's just not worth it, especially when you have 3 amazing athletes that can step up to the plate and do it. So you know who has the gold medal? Russia.
They do. Russia ended up winning the gold medal. It was very close. I will say this. The point she made by saying she didn't want to cost the team a medal, what she was saying is she thought she was so out of it that she was going to perform so poorly. And you see by the practice one she had where she had to roll out of her coming off of the vault, and then her first vault, it didn't like she had it at all. So her idea, from what she said, was she didn't want to cost her team a medal by doing so poorly. So as much as you could say she was selfish, if you think you're going to hurt your team and you pull yourself out, that's not being selfish. That's actually being a team player, right? I don't want to hurt my team. I'm going to pull myself out of this because I know I'm not going to do well in this event and hurt my team overall. That's kind of what you can take it however you want, but that's how I take it. Here's the second part of what Kirk had to say about Simone Biles.
I have to go look at these 4'11" Russian Olympians chewing on their gold medals, smirking at the Americans. I'm not okay with that. But honestly, that's where we're headed. We are raising a generation of weak people like Simone Biles. Again, if you want to be, if she got all these mental health problems, don't show up.
All right, so a couple things about that, calling her weak-minded or talking about, people in general being weak-minded. I think we have, as a society, I think we already have among the young people a very strong generation coming up. I know people like to make fun of them sometimes, but you think about what you're going through, right? And obviously not going through some of the things that my dad went through. My dad, as a small child was depression and obviously World War I and other ones that went through World War II. And we've all gone through a lot in different generations. But I think this generation, with some of the things that have happened, have shown great strength. I mean, just the idea of, think about going to high school and not going to class, or not being a part of it, right? So, I mean, you look overall at what everybody was doing over the course of the pandemic and everything and dealing with mental health. We've all have mental health issues at times. I don't think she went to the Olympics and said to herself, listen, I'm preparing for a mental health problem, so I won't go. It happened, as she said, that day. Went out to practice, was okay. had the 5.5 hours, and then went out there and was worried about hurting her team and hurting herself, right? That's what she was worried about, hurting her team and hurting herself. That's what she was worried about, and so she decided to not continue. That's her choice. That's her choice. I don't consider it to be selfish. Don't consider her a sociopath because of it. Any of those things. This is the last part from Charlie Kirk, the third part of his comments about Simone Biles.
She's an incredible athlete. Of course she's an incredible athlete. I'm not saying, I just said she's probably the greatest gymnast of all time. She's also very selfish. She's immature, and she is a shame to the country. She's totally a sociopath. Of course she's a sociopath. Andrew says she's not a sociopath. What kind of person skips the gold medal match? Who does that? It's a shame to the nation. You just gave a gift to the Russians. Don't show up. If you're not ready for the big time, we got thousands of young female gymnasts that would love to take the place. Thousands. Simone Biles just showed the rest of the nation that when things get tough, you shatter into a million pieces.
We have talked about being a sociopath on this show before, because I talked about how some of the things that some professional athletes have done kind of lean that way. Here's the definition if you don't know. It's a person with a personality disorder manifesting itself in extreme antisocial attitudes and behavior and a lack of conscience. By the way she talked about her team and what she wanted to accomplish, you don't think she has a lack of conscience. Would you call her extremely antisocial? I certainly wouldn't call her that. And in any way, she had a break. She had a serious problem that was going to affect both her as an athlete and affect her mentally, and that's how she dealt with it. I wouldn't even call her a quitter. She stepped away from something that she's very passionate of, that for the last 5 years she's been waiting to do again, and it probably was very hard to do it. Let's go to the phones real quick. We'll check in with Jason. Good morning, Jason. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
When I heard about this situation, people forget that she's doing maneuvers in midair, and if she miscalculates, she could break her neck.
Sure.
And that's what she was basically saying. She was saying I could hurt myself, which in turn would hurt the team.
Right.
But it's as simple as that, and it's amazing. I was telling my friends just yesterday that that this was going to get ugly, and it has. And all it is she is the greatest gymnast of all time, probably, arguably, but it doesn't really matter to me. But that's what everybody's calling her.
Yeah.
And she chose to let somebody else compete because mentally she was not there. She said she lost track of where she was when she was in the air.
Right.
So imagine, and people can't imagine this. You can't imagine doing what she does.
Mm-mm.
But yet people sit there and they judge like you're Ben Simmons and you can't shoot the basketball, or you're a baseball player and you get the yips or something. It's not like that. You're talking serious injury. And, if anybody, I'm just saying, people are being way hard on her for no reason at all. And I'm pretty sure, it's kind of a sign of the times. I think it's a tennis player. Or no, it's a golfer, female Asian.
No, tennis player.
Yeah, she claimed mental issues also.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So what's the problem? People act like you can't have mental issues, and first of all, a lot of people do have mental issues, and they don't even say that they do.
Sure.
So what are we really doing here?
Yeah, I appreciate Jason. So Naomi Osaka, as you was talking about, she, whatever reason, she got to the point where she couldn't sit in front of the media asking her questions. Just couldn't, whatever reason. It happens. My wife's a therapist. She deals with a lot of different things, and it's been even worse over the last 18 months because of people being at one point locked in their houses and not being able to see each other's faces and not being able to hug and see their parents and their family. It's been tough on a lot of people. So it's not just her. Greg says on Twitter, the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed, the part barely being mentioned, and I hate to resent an organization, he says, USA Gymnastics. that looked away for years while coaches and trainers abused athletes sexually and physically. There's some mental toughness to keep going in the face of that. Keyboard warriors can suck it, according to Greg. Let's go back to the phones. This is where Craig is this morning. Go ahead, Craig.
I sort of like that email, except I do think it's apples and oranges in this case. I want to respectfully disagree. I think the way that podcaster guy articulated that is disgusting, because I don't think her mental health is something that should be picked on. She's definitely not a sociopath. My God, what a horrible thing to say about somebody. And my thing is this, Michael, is it scored in the way that she was on the four-person team and they keep the best three scorers?
Part of it is, but they take away your worst score and your best score, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
If gymnastics is the same.
So on the U.S. team, she still got a silver medal.
Yes, she did.
She was one of the four. And I think one of the things is being the GOAT, and there's no doubt she's the GOAT. I think this does tarnish her legacy in some way, because everybody thinks of Carrie Strug. Carrie Strug was a better-than-average gymnast, but people think of her as a hero in the mindset of United States gymnastics because of what she did on one leg.
Yeah.
And for Simone Biles to beat, she probably could have pulled, there's 7 or 8 women on that team, and one of the other girls could have competed as the fourth on the team. And I think that's the only thing that I think, as being the GOAT, and this is not her first Olympics, she's been there and experienced this. And I just want to say that, part of the thing is, and I know this extra year with COVID has been very hard on everybody, but if you're not mentally there by then and you are the best of all time, it is it's a letdown for me, because I think she is the best. And I just think that, she could have let somebody else compete in the team competition and then went to the individual. And I think if she wins the gold medal in the all-around individual, there's going to be some lashback, but it shouldn't be about being a sociopath or anything like that. And people do get wore down mentally and stuff like that. I understand that. But it is the Olympics, and I think when we saw Carrie Strug do on one leg and walk off with Bella Corolla carrying her, I think it's one of the things that always sets in our mind about the Olympics. Well, just like that. But
yeah.
I do respect this.
I appreciate it, Craig, and I agree with you that it's going to tarnish your legacy. That's just the way it works. For whatever reason, the worst thing, and I've talked about this with Damon a couple weeks, the worst thing you do usually stays with you much longer than the best thing you do as a person. I will say this. I think once she competed and did the first vault, I think they couldn't pull her and replace her with another fourth. I don't believe in the remaining 3 young women had to compete the rest of the way. I think that's the way it works. And then the other part is, so injury sometimes is a whole lot easier to overcome when it's physical than when it's mental. What Carrie Strug did was amazing. If people don't remember it, she literally broke a bone in her lower leg and then went out there and did another vault and nailed it in order to help us win the gold back in, is that 88, 92? Those are some of those women. I was lucky enough to work in Houston at a grocery store in Kroger, which was right down the street from Bella Caroli's place in Spring, Texas. And those young women would come in, generations of them. I was there on and off before and after the Army watching these women come in. And we had to get these little stands because they couldn't go to the salad bar because they couldn't see over it. They were so small. And so they had to stand up on it and to be able to see in there and get food out of it. And they were incredibly tough. They came in there wrapped up with injuries and everything else and the things they do physically. But it's a lot easier a lot of times to overcome the pain of an injury than it is the pain of something happening in your head, because you just can't wrap that. You just can't shoot that up. You just can't, massage that to where it feels better. You can't touch it. And so when it's a mental issue, it's so hard to be able to overcome. So what Carrie Strug did is incredible, but they really are apples to oranges, in my opinion, because of what she was trying to do and trying to get over mentally. Just my opinion. Let's go back to the phones. That's where Ronald is this morning. Go ahead, Ronald.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey,
morning,
Ronald, what's up, man?
I got a little strange take. I'm not a fan of piling on or whatever,
yeah.
But just being in the athletic world or whatever. It's hard to say, but if you listen to the girl that took her place,
yeah.
Right? When she was on her first apparatus and when she got done, there were some jabs that took place, and she said, "It's for the team. It's for the team." She said it twice. So, that and that aspect with how she has to deal with things mentally, I'm all for that, doing what you need to do. But when you're in the confines, of a foxhole. You don't quit on the team. Now, if she wanted to do it later, whatever else, that's fine. You don't quit on the team. So that left a real sour taste. Even my wife said she quit. So I just wanted to share.
Ronald, the funny part about that is, and you understand fight or flight, the majority of people do quit. That's just it. They don't get to this level because the majority quits. That's why we have such few greatness. What she did was she stepped away in order to help the team. Because if she was going to be horrible, that wouldn't have helped the team.
We don't know that.
Well, but she said she was. She was. If she loses her place and she had her two worst vaults she's had in weeks in the practice and then in the first one, how do you think she was going to do any better going forward?
That's just it. We don't know, sir.
Right. She knew.
I know what she said,
mm-hmm.
but I know when an individual performs, we don't know what the outcome would have been. Even though she thought she probably couldn't have, and no one knows more than her, but I just believe you don't let your team down in that situation. So I'll listen to you guys.
No, I appreciate it, Ron. And look, I mean, I understand, especially when it comes to the reference you made with the foxhole, which we shouldn't compare war to regular life with anything. But there is that, always I'm covering for you, right? It's you, Joe, you go, I cover. You're always covering for the other person. That's the way it works. And when you're talking about war, being in a foxhole. Same thing is true with a team, right? Most team sports. Gymnastics is one of those weird sports where you're an individual for a lot of times, but you're also a team member. She says she thought she was doing the best she could for the team by stepping away. But again, she would know best, but I do understand the people who look at it and say she should have continued to try. I get that as well. We'll go back to the phones. This is where Craig is. Go ahead, Craig.
Hey, Mike. Love you.
Thanks, man.
A couple things. One, Michael Phelps was saying how he almost cried.
That was good.
He can go through this.
Yep.
Hey, who knows better about the pressure than him?
Yep.
Nobody.
Yep.
He even said he had problems. It was hard for him to ask for help. At least she did at one time. And who was that jackwagon that said that over 1,000 girls would rather be there than her?
Yeah. Charlie Kirk is his name.
Well, thanks. I'll forget that right now.
You're welcome.
Because I don't want to know.
Yeah.
The very best stand-in was there already. So it's not like she kept some kid from going there and competing that night.
Right.
The very best next gymnast was there. So, if she doesn't want to hurt herself or the team, so be it. I mean,
yeah.
At first when I heard about it, I was like most people, how could she have done that? Then I sat back, got the whole story, thought back and reflected on it. I go, applaud her for doing that. It takes more courage to do that than not to, I think. She could have went out there and just flopped, and, I admire the girl.
No, I appreciate it, Craig. And we mentioned in the first segment, last night, listening to Mike Tirico interview Michael Phelps. That was great. I thought Michael Phelps was pretty concise in what he tried to say. I think he probably wanted to say even more about having people there to help you. But at the same time, if you say that, maybe you're insulting or putting down someone who is supposed to be support staff. I don't know. But he talked about it, 5 years of dealing with all that pressure and what it did to him mentally. And that's why he's trying to reach out and help young athletes now, not just to be able to swim to save their lives, but also to be able to handle things mentally, And so I don't know. I mean, no one knows what she was going through as well as Michael Phelps and Katie Ledecky. Two people who have been the face of Olympics in the past, and they both said the same thing. They can't speak for Simone Biles, but they completely understand what she was going through because they went through very similar things. And those are the two best that you really can think about. Greg brought up Carrie Shrug was coached by Bella Caroli. Yeah, I mentioned that Caroli's studio was near where I worked. If you really want to find out everything you need to know about the Carolis, both he and his wife, there's a really good podcast, a 30 for 30 podcast from ESPN that they did. And some of the stuff that they did to those athletes and the way they treated them would not be allowed now. It just wouldn't. Not in this era. There's no way it'd be allowed. The things that he did to young women back then, no way they could be allowed now. It's a really good piece if you want to listen to it. It's a little hard to listen to because of some of the things that they did and what came out of it. But it's a really good podcast to listen to if you want to check out just with the Carolis teaching methods were. Steve says on the J-Tech Construction Zone Twitter feed, the same people calling her a quitter are the same people that would be calling her out if the U.S. didn't medal, saying she should have stepped aside if she didn't have it. It's possible, Steve. It's possible. Go back to the phones. It's where Quincy is this morning. What's up, Quincy?
Hey, I agree. I have no problem with her stepping out, Michael, but also, too, man, people got to realize, look, that's a lot of stress on a young person and anything, especially in entertainment with these kids and stuff. And, you know, when you go into a fight for your country. And the reason why I think a lot of people are mad because a lot of these black athletes are not doing with the white agenda, you know?
I'm not gonna say, Quincy, that that's the case. I will say that often an African American or a person of color will take more criticism from people over the course of this. I agree with that part. They take more criticism.
I agree with that, but a lot of people got to listen to Megan McCain, The View. You know, we don't believe in the same thing. That flag doesn't represent all black people like it should.
No, I completely agree. I mean, there's no doubt, Quincy. I appreciate it. There is certainly a feeling of being let down by the country at times. And don't give me, well, you should leave. This is where you live. This is where we live. There is a feeling for a lot of people of color, that the flag has let them down more than anything else, than it has taken care of them. So that's you know, again, I talk about it all the time. I salute the national anthem. It means a lot to me as a prior service person. At the same time, it's also because of what we do fighting for this country is why people can sit down or kneel or have whatever they want to do. You protect all people when it comes to the way they handle patriotism and the flag. Let's go back to the phones. One more phone call. Steve in Omaha joining us here on Severe and Betty in the Morning. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, guys. Good morning. I have suffered from anxiety and depression seriously for my entire adult life. And for a long time, I didn't know it. And I think that probably I suffered from it back at a young age, maybe even as a teenager or early young adult, possibly like she does or admitted that she does. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those guys in school where I was an athlete and I played all the sports and, you know, came home from school and played more sports and thought I was tougher than nails. And, you know, I was just a kid in high school and college just digging around and doing my best. But to be on that stage and to be in that pressure-filled situation, for anybody that doesn't understand that, and Michael, you do because I know your wife does that type of work and deals with people like that, I mean, it can literally take and engulf you and cover you like throwing a dark blanket or a sack over your head. And when it shuts you down, and I don't care if you're Simone Biles or I don't care if you're Joe Blow, there's at that time, man, and it could be an hour, 2 hours, a day, a week. It takes a combination of drugs and counseling and reprogramming your mind. You have to reprogram your mind to get by it. And with the pressure she's under, with the whole world looking at her, with her probably she's going to be one of the greatest United States Olympians of all time, no matter what happens, she's going to be. Mm-hmm. I can absolutely see that, and I could absolutely see her trying as hard as she can, like I do every day, to get up and go to work and perform, to feed my family and to do my best. And when I fail and I can't because of my affliction mentally, it just beats the living tar out of you. And imagine her in that scope, on stage in front of the whole world. Imagine her. There's no question that she did the best she could to deal with it. I'm sure. It was awful timing, but I mean, it just wrecks you. It wrecks you if it's that bad. Yeah. And I just pray for her that she can get that under control for at least the rest of the Olympics, and more importantly, for the rest of her life.
Yeah. Steve, I appreciate the call, man. Thanks a lot. So real quick, I would say this, I was very ignorant about mental health for a very long time. thought I knew whatever. But, reading and then talking to people and having experiences with people close to me, dealing with it, I think I better understand it now than I did when I considered myself to be very ignorant about it. One of those people I thought, just get over it and just whatever. I didn't understand. I better understand now, but I probably still don't have as good a grasp as I should about what people are dealing with on a daily basis. Go ahead, Shane.
I was just going to say there was a story that they ran the other day, and I believe it was an American swimmer who had a note from Phelps, and it talked about he left him just some advice that it's not about being up on the stand. It's not about being up on the medal stand. It's about making lifelong friendships. And so looking at like this sort of a situation, and then looking at like how all the team kind of supports each other, and then even how the competitors support each other, I think that helps in that sort of a situation. And I also think that the other stories like NBC has been running, and they've run them before in the other Olympics, about the background on the families. So that obviously helps in these situations, having a good support staff like that to help the athlete get through it. Who's if you think about it, whether it be swimming, gymnastics, golf, whatever, I mean, any of the sports, they've been doing this pretty much their entire life.
Yeah, since they were 3-4 years old.
3-4 years old, so...
She's 24, 21 years of her life she's been doing this.
Yeah, and that's all she knows.
Yep.
So to have that, you're just... when this sort of stuff happens, it's good to know that they have a good supporting cast, whether it be their family or the other player or the other their teammates to help them out.
Amazing Daniel said, imagine wanting to see her get a physical injury on the mat rather than seeing her take care of an issue she was already experiencing. That's what the people who demand that she should have continued are basically saying. You go back and you look at some of these former gymnasts talk about watching her vault. And one of them said, if it had been anyone other than Simone Biles, who made the same error, they would have certainly blown out a knee at a minimum. Another said if it happened to her instead of Simone, she probably would have ended up paralyzed. Most non-gymnastics fans do not understand the seriousness of what happened because she landed on her feet. Every elite gymnast that this reporter talked to, has said that if Simone Biles' vault was terrifying, it was a miracle that she put the vault all the way to her feet and avoided serious injury. She left out an entire twist as part of it because she was in the air and lost where she was, left out an entire twist. Again, she could have suffered a very serious injury. You wanted her to go back out there and risk that. Obviously, the team's important. Representing America is important. I understand that. But think about that. You're asking her to go out there and injure herself or have the chance of injuring herself just because you feel that she's not doing everything she should be doing. It's a kind of a strange situation. We will take a break. When we come back, something a little more happier than this. If it was a food show, and are people who are delivering food to your house taking stuff out of the box? Certainly a possibility. We'll tell you about that when we come back here on Severe and Benny in the Morning.